Okay, welcome. It's good to see everybody, and I'm really happy to be here and to see the good work that you guys have been doing in your composition classes, Lang 120. Just a few logistics. If you're presenting, stand close. There's light, there's sound, so stand about where I am with the microphone. You've probably shared your work with me. It's either going to be on the desktop or on the Google Drive. And so that should be easy to find, but I'll be sitting near if you need any help with that. There will be an intermission, and you can see where it is from the program. We have a lot of neat stuff going on in the lobby as well. So during intermission, it'll be that time for you to kind of circulate there and see what's going on with some installations and sound and other infographics and projects out in the lobby. What else? I think that's it. So right now, it's my honor to introduce Professor Jessica Pisano, the director of a writing program coordinator. And I just want to say her encouragement, support, and enthusiasm sustains her students and her colleagues and in our work together. And without her, this wouldn't happen either. So let's give her a hand.
Okay, so thank you, Professor Johnson, but honestly, Professor Johnson organized this whole thing, so don't let her fool you for a minute. Thank you for bringing us together, coordinating all this. When we first initiated the Gudger Celebration of First Year Writing, my predecessor, mentor, former professor, and treasured friend, Dr. G. James, would introduce this celebration. In her introduction, she honored one of her former instructors, the woman for whom this event is named, Peggy Jo Gudger. The story Dr. James used to tell about Peggy Jo Gudger goes like this. She was an amazing, dedicated first-year writing teacher who wanted to celebrate student work, not only in the classroom, but also in a more public way. And so after retiring, she and her husband donated money so that the work of first-year students could be honored and celebrated. At first, that honor was bestowed in the form of a writing contest. But for the past few years, in order to recognize the variety of ways in which we compose and communicate, this celebration has transformed into a showcase of multimodal presentations. And so we continue honoring Peggy Jo Gudger's spirit, her desire to celebrate your work. Everyone here knows the amount of work that you, both those presenting and those watching, have put into your writing and composition this year. You've drafted, revised, conferenced, revised, peer-edited, and revised again. Congratulations to all of you just for making it to this point in your college career. But I'd also like to acknowledge that none of us would be here tonight without the first-year writing instructors who dedicate their time and energy to you, their students, every single day all semester. This evening, I'd like to acknowledge one particular recipient, one particular instructor, the recipient of our inaugural first-year writing instructor award. In the words of one of her students, they are amazing. They understand the everyday stress of college students. They base their hard but doable assignments on the class's needs for development. Through their assignments, we learn about ourselves, our classmates, and our surroundings. Another of their students writes, overall, they know that it's okay to make mistakes because they'll be there to pick us up. Lastly, they try to get to know you, which is nice in the sense that they know how you write and what writing style works best for you. This instructor picked up an additional 8 a.m. class 2 weeks into the semester, but never fails to greet students and colleagues with a smile in the hallway. Yes, this outstanding first-year writing instructor is Jennifer Magaha. Jennifer, would you come up to receive your award? So congratulations to Professor Magaha, and congratulations to all of us to making it for the end of the semester. Now, in celebration of you, the students and the faculty and staff who've guided you along the way, and in honor of Dr. James and Pecky Jo Gudger, let's get started.
Hello? Okay, that works. Okay, so hey guys, I'm Gray McNish, and I'm going to talk about some airplanes today, really fast ones. So the return of commercial supersonic aviation. I'm going to talk about two companies that are working really hard to bring back those type of aircraft to us today. But before I do that, I want to talk about the history of some past supersonic aircraft that have failed, talk about why they failed, to give us some context for these new companies and how they're addressing those problems. So everyone, we probably all know about the Concorde. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. That's the most famous past SST, or supersonic transport aircraft. And in development and in its operation, it faced many problems, as did others that were developed or not developed and failed. And they all fall into one of these three categories, either the science, the culture, or the economics. So basically for science, what I'm saying there is that engineers of the time, they really didn't have the type of technology, they didn't have the computing power, things like that to solve these really complex problems that need to be solved to bring these aircraft into fruition, efficiently at that. And then one that I think is really interesting is the culture. I really didn't expect that doing my research. And where that really comes into play is the culture of the United States. While the Concorde was being developed, they really weren't excited about an American version of the Concorde. They were very against the environmental impacts that people were afraid of. They really were not excited about sonic booms. There was really a big movement against it. And it's the same in other countries as well, and I'll talk about it later. In economics, these planes were they were very expensive for manufacturers. They were expensive for customers, the airlines, and that's the passengers. And so that was just a really huge hindrance for the aircraft from all manufacturers. So the first example, Concorde, if you don't know what it is, this is a picture of it, very beautiful aircraft. One of the main reasons it eventually failed, it actually flew for many years, so some would say that, I think it is a success in a way, so that's kind of cool. But it did have a very small market. It only flew over the Atlantic Ocean from New York to Paris and New York to London because it didn't have the range to fly over the Pacific, and it was too loud to fly over land. And in addition to that, it was very expensive. The tickets were very expensive, so not many people could afford them. So small market. But it eventually, what really caused it to fail was its manufacturer, which then evolved into Airbus, which we know today, stopped providing engineering support and spare parts. And at that point, the airlines couldn't afford to keep it going. So it was retired. And then this is the Soviet-built aircraft built by company Tupolev, the Tu-144. It was the first supersonic transport aircraft to fly. And the reason that they were able to do that was because they cheated, basically, the Soviets. They sent spies to steal information about the Concorde while it was being developed, and they brought it back to the Soviet Union, and the government told their engineers, we want you to rush, we want you to build this so we can beat the British and the French. And they did beat them. But by going so fast, they built an aircraft that was very unreliable. It had many engine failures. The vibration was very strong it frightened some passengers even. So after being introduced, it was retired only a year later from commercial service. And then another interesting factor, I mentioned culture earlier, in the Soviet Union, this aircraft really didn't make sense to the people because at the time, this type of aircraft was kind of represented luxury and excess. And that really didn't match with the kind of Soviet mindset of, a collective society, the people's, like supporting the working class, because this aircraft wasn't for them. They couldn't afford it. So it didn't make sense. So it was basically just a propaganda tool even. And then this is the United States' answer, the Boeing 2707. It was never finished. Because the FAA was so set on having an aircraft that was faster, more efficient, and could carry more passengers than the Concorde. All very high challenges, large requests, even for today. that the engineering process and design process was so drawn out. They were trying to solve these really complex problems, and it was just delayed and delayed and delayed, and it just got so expensive. And whenever the people finally decided that they didn't, they weren't excited about it, they didn't want the sonic booms, they were worried about the environment, the government, they just canceled it. So I never made it. But today, these two companies, there are many others, but these are the two that I would want to highlight because they're the most, in the news, the biggest ones. Boom Supersonic and the Aerion Corporation are working really hard to bring these aircraft back and are addressing almost all the issues that I mentioned earlier. So let's talk about them. This is Boom Supersonic's aircraft, the Overture. As you can see, it's very beautiful here. Really nice rendering. The company estimates that it'll be 30% more efficient than the Concorde. And that is due to the fact that it only has 3 engines. The Concorde had 4. It does have that same kind of triangular wing, but due to new computer software and new design technologies, the wing actually is extremely more efficient than the Concorde and also quieter. So that's a big goal that these companies have to reduce the noise, because that's also a large complaint. And it will fly around Mach 2.2, which is around 1,500 miles per hour, so very quick. And also the company is very excited because it's receiving a lot of support from airlines even. It has about 30 pre-orders from a lot of airlines that you all may have heard of, but also a lot are unnamed still. And this is the inside. So it's just a rendering now, but you can see it's kind of still more of a luxury product, but as it goes on, they hope to kind of bring the cost down and make it for everybody. This is the second aircraft I'm going to talk about, built by the Aerion Corporation. It's the AS2. You can see that the wing is a little bit different. It's much more linear. Again, that's due to the new technologies that the engineers have access to now, something they're very proud of. The point of the wing design is, again, to be quieter and also more efficient, but quieter. They estimate that they'll be able to fly at Mach 1.2, so that it's past the speed of sound, and produce no sonic boom. So that would be solving a huge problem that these airplanes will face. And then oversea Mach 1.4, so also very fast. And if you didn't notice, it is a private jet, so it won't be for all of us, but it still kind of looks cool, I think. And then again, you can see it has 3 engines here instead of the 4 or however many. And then this company is also backed by Boeing and GE Aviation. GE is building the engines, and Boeing is supporting them with engineers, money, experience, things like that. So given the research that I've done, I really do expect these aircraft to be flying in the next 5 years, as do the companies. And I'm excited to see it. So, and then this is what the inside will look like. So that's pretty much it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jordan Upright. And in classrooms, there is a political bias. As you can see, I decided to research into this question of whether there is a political bias or not in the classrooms. I will be going through my different sources I have found to explain why I believe this and what solutions could be put to help resolve this issue. First, I felt that I needed to look into the basic information of political leanings of educators. A survey done by the Education Week Research Center gathered information of K-12 educators, including 555 teachers, 266 school leaders, 202 district leaders, and 99 other school or district employees. Out of 899 answers, 41% affiliated with Democrat, 30% with independent, and 27% Republican, and 1% third party. Not only did I gather research from K through 12, but I found information about college educators. Studies done by the World Net Daily and Policy Review magazine looked into the Democrat to Republican ratio in various colleges. As you can see, at Brown University is 53-3. At Berkeley, 59-7. At Stanford, 151-17. In the University of Colorado at Boulder, 184 out of the 190 social science and humanities professors identify as Democrats. At UCLA, 53 out of the 56 history professors are affiliated with leftist parties, and 16 out of the 17 political science professors are affiliated with leftist parties. Another research that I have found was done by the Center of Popular Culture, not on educators, but on the schools who pick graduation speakers. They examined over a 10-year period and discovered that out of 32 college examined, including all Ivy League schools, 226 to 15 speakers were liberal. Out of the 32 schools, 22 of them didn't even invite any conservative speakers. From the research compiled here, it shows that a majority of educators in K through 12 and universities are more liberal to conservative. This doesn't mean that there is a definite bias in the classroom, but it's a starting point to see where a majority of educators lie. However, I did find that the graduation research here about the speakers possibly showing a bias. A reason why I can see is that a school would pick someone they would identify with. So if their ideology is more liberal, they would choose someone with the same ideology. Next, I decided to look into how students felt about a political bias. A study was done by Darren L. Linville, where a survey was addressed to 277 females and 251 males. They were asked questions on a scale of 1, meaning not at all, to 4, meaning a great deal. A few examples of the questions are, I believe I should censor my own political beliefs to preserve my grade when my political beliefs are different than my professors, with a mean of 3.19. Professors are dismissive of students' political beliefs with a mean of 3. And in my experience, professors tend to limit class discussion to the professor's own beliefs with a mean of 3.19. And I'm not going to stray away from the questions that came out with a beneficial answer. Some of those are, I would feel comfortable informing my professors of my disagreement with their political beliefs with a mean of 3.56. I feel free to express my political beliefs during class discussions, irrespective of my professor's political beliefs, with a mean of 3.95. And I feel free to express my political beliefs on assignments, irrespective of political beliefs, with a mean of 4.03. These questions and their means show that students do feel comfortable expressing their political beliefs, but that is not the problem. These results show that they believe that they should censor themselves to preserve their grades and to not start conflict. The survey results also state that students' differing opinions are being dismissed by professors, that the professors only limit discussion to their similar beliefs rather than the opposing beliefs. Students' comfortability doesn't matter if they're just going to be shut down. Censoring opposing beliefs is a restriction of the First Amendment right. I then decided to look into specific examples and to see political bias. Several Cornell professors canceled class to their, quote, personal distress and concern for students' emotional well-being, end quote. At Iowa State, a professor canceled her class and postponed a quiz. The reason why, that was the day after Donald Trump was announced president. Do teachers have the right to cancel classes, the classes that students and their guardians pay for because they are upset? Well, the answer is yes, a teacher can cancel those classes, but it doesn't mean that it's ethically right. Let's look more into censoring. How about a whole university rejecting someone from visiting? That would happen to political commentator Ben Shapiro. From multiple articles, Shapiro can be seen trying to be rejected from various campuses. Grand Canyon University declined a venue and wrote a statement saying because his appearance would be too divisive and run counter to the school's mission. Gonzaga University would also reject Shapiro due to routinely draw protests that include extremely divisive and hateful speech and behavior, which is offensive to many people, regardless of their age, politic, or beliefs. DePaul and California State University would also try to block Shapiro. Shapiro isn't the only one that is treated differently. Other well-known speakers like Jordan Peterson, Milo, and the organization Turning Point USA will also be blocked. Just because they and their students don't like what he has to say. Does that mean he should be blocked, that he should be rejected? No, no matter what they say, our First Amendment protects his rights to say what he has to say. The last sources were 2 opinion articles, one written by David Cutler and Frederick Hess. Teachers. Cutler believed that instead of venting, we should discuss why the other side feels that way, and to admit our biases openly, to look at both perspectives while being open about our own beliefs. Hess believed instead of complaining, teachers should use events for teaching opportunities. Both teachers decided not to try to vent or complain, but to learn, to teach what controversial event happened and to let their students learn about something new. However, Cutler, on the left, would have agreed with more of an open bias. Hess, on the right, would rather stick to just teaching aspect and keep a more neutral interpretation. Now for the solutions. There is no solution to get rid of bias. It's in our blood, but that with what Hess and Cutler said, I believe that we should use moments, no matter how much we agree with them or disagree with them, to teach. We should tell students both sides of the stories. We should be open to those who disagree with us, not privilege those who agree, and let those who disagree be censored. We must not censor the opposing ideas of others just because we do not agree with it or that it is, quote, offended us. Teachers are there to help students learn all about the world, both sides of every story, and let them decide what to think. Instead of protests, how about we listen? Civil discussion. Sit at a table and have a conversation without arguing and listening with what the other has to say. Have a civil debate and discuss issues from 2 sides in a common civil way while listening to each other. Because at the end of the day, no matter what beliefs we have, we are all the same. We are all people. Thank you. Do any of you have questions?
So I heard you saying that because of Ben Shapiro's First Amendment rights that he should be allowed to speak at colleges and not be censored. I just have a question. The First Amendment does allow Ben Shapiro to say what he likes, but it does not protect him from the consequences of what he says. So perhaps him not being allowed to speak at a school is just a consequence of him participating in his First Amendment rights. What would you have to say about that?
Well, Well, I believe anybody should have the right to speak, especially if students of organizations, usually with Ben Shapiro, he's usually part of Turning Point USA, which organizations at colleges invite him to come. If there are students that want him to speak, they should be able to listen. And Ben Shapiro should be able to speak. No matter if you disagree with him, if you disagree, you can go and talk to him and ask him why you disagree, and he'll talk back to you. And if you don't like what he has to say and don't want to see him, you don't have to go and see him. It's an optional event. And that's the thing. Like banning people, I mean, that's a certain thing that you can censor someone, but if it's optional, you have the choice not to go and see him. So I believe, might as well give him the right to speak, and if you don't like what he has to say, you don't have to go, you know?
Since the university is kind of a large representative of student bodies, and Ben Shapiro has said things that would make members of that student body feel like they are invalidated or they are, let's just say, wrong. Do you think that might really affect the relationship between students and their administrators? And would that somehow make them feel as though the administrators condone things that Ben Shapiro is saying and then therefore affect the integrity and the safety of the students at the university?
Well, I have this idea. So with administrators for like Shapiro or the students that bring in Shapiro, they're not accountable for his actions. Those are his actions. They do not take responsibility for that. So if Ben Shapiro comes and says something that people don't like, people shouldn't blame the administrative because it's not their fault. If that's Ben's for his right to speak.
They did give him a platform, though. They allowed him to do that.
You're all right. But I believe we should give platforms. Even if it is controversial, we should give platforms, because you said like a majority of the student body may not like what I have to say, but what about the majority of the student body? They're not being represented.
It just depends on where the university is. Thank you for answering my question.
No problem. Thank you for asking. Any other questions? Yes.
So, like, when you were saying that there shouldn't be protests, do you not think protests are an effective method of demonstration? Or
Oh, no, I believe you have the right to protest. That is in your First Amendment. You do have the right to protest. But I believe that sometimes with these protests that do happen, we can make them more civil. We can talk about it instead of protesting, because I've seen, you can probably see videos on YouTube of people yelling and screaming at each other that don't get anywhere. And that's a huge problem, because why do we need to keep arguing at each other when we can just talk to each other? You know? I mean, if you want to protest, you have the right to protest. Go ahead. But I believe that talking is more valuable.
so, like, in that case, speaking again on the university speakers, suppose that a protest does devolve, because no matter how much you want to say that civil discourse is away, when people's lives are being affected, they get a lot more impassioned by things.
Yes.
So, like, I just feel like it comes down to a matter of, like, safety and respect. Like, for example, with Tamika Mallory, when she came here, the administration asked her to attend events with Jewish people before her talk and, like, address that controversy because there were protesters and stuff. So, like, I mean, are you saying that they should do stuff like that, or they should just completely allow them to talk?
Who, like the protesters?
No, like the people who are controversial speakers, should they just, do you think there should be guidelines for their actions if they do come, or do you think they should just like do whatever they want with the speaker?
Well, I think guidelines is more of like the law. They need to follow the law. I mean, they can't go, you know, robbing people while they're coming to speak or anything like that. But like, as long as they're coming and doing what they are here to do, then I believe it's fine to say whatever they want to say. If you want to protest them, go ahead and protest them. But there are things that we can make it civil, and then there's things that just get out of hand. Yeah.
So, I just want to be clear. The way that you're talking about protests, it makes it sound like you believe that people go and protest and they haven't spoken to the people they're protesting already. What I've seen from going to protests is that we protest because we've already spoken and civil conversation has failed. That's why there's a need for demonstration, and that's why it's secured in our First Amendment rights. Because sometimes the freedom to speak out doesn't get anything done, so we need to demonstrate. So are you saying that that you think protesters aren't speaking first? They just go to protest for the sake of chaos?
No, I did not say that. But what I said earlier is you have the right, and you also said it in your First Amendment, you have the right to protest. I believe that if you want to use that right, you have the ability to use that right. Just personally, in my opinion, I believe that more of a talking one-on-one type of deal, or just talking in a civil discourse manner, is more beneficial. But that's just my personal opinion. Yes.
So, would you say that it's very surprising that most of the teachers or professors that were shown in those studies were Democrats or left-leaning, since those on the right are, for lack of a better term, wanting education to be reduced in some way with not giving as much funding to schools and organizations, and those on the left want pretty much the opposite, want somewhat the opposite of that, for education to be put to a higher standard. So considering the sort of ideology within education, do you think it's not at all surprising that there are the majority of teachers and professors being left-leaning?
I mean, I believe that it doesn't matter what education you have, or not education, political beliefs you have. Sorry about that. You can become an educator if you want to, but I just believe that more people with a left-leaning ideology do more likely become educators. I don't believe that's mostly based on their political beliefs of whether they want to have more education or less education. I just believe it's whether they want to become an educator or not. Anybody else? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Savannah Trout, and I will be presenting on the topic of sexual assault on college campuses. I do have a disclaimer. I will be discussing sexual assault, sexual harassment, and stalking. There will be quotes from students that attend this school, as well as some possibly disturbing images and stories, as well as inappropriate language. If this topic makes you uncomfortable, please either leave the room or not pay attention to this presentation. My main question is, are colleges doing enough to help and prevent sexual assault on their campuses? My opinion, colleges are not doing enough to help survivors and prevent sexual assault. Throughout this presentation, however, I will discuss and show all opinions and perspectives on this topic. What exactly are college campuses doing for this issue? Programs, such as the required talks here at UNCA that freshmen are required to attend about sex, consent, sexual assault, and harassment. Online resources. For example, UNCA's support page includes contact information to the Title IX Administrator, Health and Counseling Center, Hyan's House Sexual Assault Response Team, as well as off-campus resources and additional rights and resources. And lastly, spaced out emergency phones on campus. When looking at UNCA Asheville in particular, these seem to be the only precautions to help prevent and care for survivors. But is this enough? Women 18 to 24 are still at high risk for sexual assault and sexual violence on college campuses. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 16 men are sexually assaulted while attending college. Only 2% of rapists, including those who commit rapes that go unreported by the victim, ever serve prison time. More than 50% of college sexual assaults occur in August, September, October, or November, meaning students are at an increased risk during the first few months of their first and second semesters in college. But are these assaults really the college's fault? There are 3 possibilities. 1, it is the college's fault due to not enough precautions, lenient to no punishments for previous perpetrators, and very slow reaction or action time taken to deal with the complaint or even investigate it, sometimes causing the complainant to drop the complaint or lead others to not want to report. 2, it is not the college's fault due to the Title IX Administrator working for the government and not the school directly. It is out of the college's control to an extent, or the perpetrator is solely at fault for the crime they committed, thus the school is in no way involved or at fault. Option 3, it is not the college's fault due to it being the survivor/victim's fault. What about Title IX? In April 2014, the White House released a list of 55 colleges and universities under federal investigation for possible violations of Title IX, the 1972 federal gender equality law that requires schools to investigate all reports of sexual assault. This map shows the colleges across the U.S., showing the states with the most open investigation being in Massachusetts with 6. What are some ways society and colleges can help stop this problem? The American Civil Liberties Union estimates that at least 95% of campus rapes in the U.S. go unreported. The stigma behind rape victims and the victim blaming/disbelief is a huge societal problem. Treat sexual assault as any other rule broken on a college campus. The cheating repercussions can lead to expulsion in some cases, though sexual assaults take months to even be investigated. The only 25% of reported assaults eventually result in an arrest. Make it a topic that is normal. To get help, talk about experiences freely without fear or repercussions or judgment. What are some examples of things that do not help to prevent this issue? According to a report from the American Association of University Women Education Foundation, surveying 2,036 enrolled college students, most say they sexually harassed others because they thought it was funny. Nearly 1/3 of them said they did it because they thought the person wanted sexual attention, and around 1/3 said they did it because it's just what people did. Student leaders at St. Mary's University participating in a chant that endorses sexual assault. SMU boys, we like them young. Y is for your sister, O is for oh so tight, U is for underage, N is for no consent, G is for grab that ass. According to Nevada Assemblywoman Michelle Foyer, the only thing young, hot little girls on college campuses need to do to prevent rape is carry a gun. Fueling rape culture by referring to women as young, hot little girls instead of acknowledging them as people, and instead of fixing the issue, arming college students with weapons. Fueling stereotypes that men do not get raped due to them being too manly, that men always enjoy sex, consensual or not. What do the students at UNCA have to say on this topic? For this presentation, I conducted a survey about sexual assault, sexual harassment, and stalking. Here are some results from that survey. 40% of participants said they had been sexually assaulted, sexually harassed, or stalked. Only 16.7% reported the incident, while 30% did not report at all. Only 6.7% said the school acted accordingly to the report. For the question as to why they did not report the incident, the highest percentage answer was 23.3% didn't think anything would happen or anyone would do anything. Here are some written responses from the survey conducted. How safe do you feel on campus on a scale from 1 to 5? Explain further. There are so many people on campus who have sexually harassed or sexually assaulted women on campus, and nothing has happened to combat this or remove the people. I do feel safe in everyday life as a student on campus. However, when working on my on-campus job, I do not always feel safe. The sense of insecurity is heightened by my knowledge that full-time non-student staff will not protect me from sexual harassment. The way this campus handles sexual assault is not comforting. I think I would feel better if people were actually reprimanded for their actions. Blank. Did you report it? If you did report it, has the school/police reacted accordingly? Blank stalked me and several people I know. It was reported and nothing happened, and he's still walking around. He's also friends with/sits with the police during meals, which is a clear sign of him trying to get the favor of them so nothing happens to him. I reported 2 years after the assault and was told it was too late and no one could protect me or punish the assaulter. After reporting, I had to wait on the case for 7 years before any real action was taken. He got a slap on the wrist. The administrator thought it was funny and should be handled in private between me and the guy. If you did not report, why? I did report, nothing happened. I did report, but not for a while. I was afraid of getting in trouble, and since it was someone close to me, I didn't want to alienate myself from everyone. I felt as if it wasn't bad enough to be reported. Months later, I know I was wrong, but it's too late to do anything now. But this is a nice campus. There haven't been that many reports about this kind of stuff, right? Over the course of about a month, 3 major incidences have happened. The first incident is a walkout of our Mills Residential Hall employees. Due to the university's lack of attention to the Title IX issues and the underlying culture of racism, the residential assistants in this building will no longer be sitting desk. This is a statement regarding the UNC Asheville honorary degree process. Due to a lack of attention and action to the Title IX complaints and racism presented, the students staged a walkout during class time to protest. The Chancellor's office made this statement. We acknowledge the pain and suffering that comes with sexual harassment and abuse, and acknowledge that trauma can be lifelong and compounded when people and institutions knowingly or unknowingly fail to acknowledge the suffering of others. For this reason, we are committed to re-examining our honorary degree program to ensure its process is rooted in integrity and trust. And lastly, the Occupy the Quad protest that took place on April 12th. Occupy the Quad is a collective of students who want to bring to light the issues of Title IX mishaps, poor administration practices, the culture of racism, lack of resources for people dealing with mental health/disabilities, policy hypocrisy, and malpractices of campus police. Our goal is to unify the student body, regardless of race, sexuality, class standing, age, religion, national origin, disability, political affiliation, as well as bringing those together of different clubs and organizations to help express our concerns. This peaceful protest called upon the administrators, the school, and the police department to open their eyes and do something to help the students they swore to protect. In conclusion, there are many ways to go about this problem, but there seems to be no improvement or action being done, especially on this campus. Students have held walkouts, protests, reported, and waited for help and change, but has yet to come. It is hard to change society and college campuses' ways of reaching to assaults and handling them. The only thing we can do is continue to fight for what is right and for the safety of students on this campus. So the question is, how are you going to make a difference in this community? Thank you. Any questions?
Hi everyone, how are we doing tonight? Good, okay. My name is Cassie Dockery, and this presentation is about plant foods and disease prevention. I am a health and wellness major, so nutrition is very important to me, but I would rather focus on overall health rather than a diet that is a fad. I think it's very important to implement nutrient-rich staples into your diet of whatever your diet is. So first, I would like to talk to you guys about diseases and how they can form into your body. So many diseases are formed from free radicals, and free radicals are caused by environmental factors such as smoking, pollution, radiation, and sometimes even medications. And after a buildup of these free radicals, you can develop oxidative stress. And oxidative stress is what damages your cells in your body. So as you can see that throughout the process of accumulating those free radicals and oxidative stress, your brain is completely different. It's completely damaged. And Alzheimer's is not the only disease that can form from free radicals and oxidative stress. Other neurological diseases include ALS, multiple sclerosis, and some other diseases include different types of cancers, osteoarthritis, and rheumatoid arthritis, which are inflammatory diseases. You can also develop fetal damage and pulmonary diseases. So now I will talk to you guys about how you can prevent those things from happening in your body. Antioxidants are found in many different plant foods, and they are so powerful. So basically, this is a representation of a cell, and you can see that the free radical is moving into the cell, and it damages things like your neurons and your neutrons and your electrons, and those antioxidants will move into the cell, and they fight off those free radicals. So you can view it as in the free radical attacks the antioxidant instead of the things in your cells, or it's just preventative. So how do you get antioxidants in your body? Like, how can you identify them, and how can you have an abundance of them? So basically, plant foods, that is all. And plant foods are so important because they are so rich in these antioxidants versus other foods. You can find antioxidants in other foods. For example, beer is the 4th largest source of antioxidants for Americans. So you can still go bar hopping on the Saturday night and get your antioxidants, but I wouldn't recommend it because it's not very optimal. But instead, you can have 1 serving of cherries and it has 713 units of antioxidants versus a serving of salmon, which has 3. So I'm not saying that you should resort to a vegan diet or a plant-based diet to receive all these good beneficial things, but simply just put those staples into your diet because it can make a huge change. And those changes are based on your decisions. So whenever you're going to the grocery store and you are looking for produce that has more antioxidants, it is so simple. You can choose the yellow corn over the white corn. And why is that? Because the antioxidants are found in pigmented foods. So for example, I have some oranges. Here I have a blood orange, and this is a navel orange. So which one do you guys think has more antioxidants? Yes, the blood orange, because it is darker in pigment. So it's so simple. You can pick the red onion over the white onion, the red grapefruit over the pink grapefruit. So, lastly, I'm going to talk about diets. There is not one diet that's going to help you from developing diseases. There's not one diet that's going to increase the longevity of your life. It is simply just watching what you put in your body, and it can be negative or positive. So is there anything that will truly prevent you from getting sick, or is there something that will keep you safe? No. It is simply just taking care of yourself. Okay. Any questions?
What foods or vegetables would you recommend that have like the most antioxidants in them? Is like a top 5 or?
Yeah, so some really common berries that have so many antioxidants are goji berries, blueberries, blackberries, anything that's very dark in pigment like that. Some berries can even have up to like 1,000 units of antioxidants per serving. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ani. Thank you all for having me. Today I'm going to talk about indigeneity and climate change. So I've always known I wanted to go into the field of environmentalism since I was young. And even more recently, I've understood that I want to go into environmental policy. But this semester completely shifted my understanding of environmentalism, and it completely shifted my paradigm. Because I've learned, and I'm continuing to learn and understand, that the primary cause of climate change can be traced back to colonialism, specifically the invasion of European settlers on native land. And this isn't new information, but it's new to me, and I think that's a problem. Through my Indigenous Studies class and my Ethnic Studies class, and further exploration on my own, I've been growing my understanding and acknowledging the impact colonialism continues to have on communities of color, Indigenous communities, and on our planet. I'm understanding that working for the environment means working to decolonize, and this is what my research is focused on. Firstly, however, I think it's important we acknowledge that we're on Native land right now. We are currently on Cherokee land, and we must honor and respect and express gratitude for that. It's also important to acknowledge that I'm not Indigenous, and I don't claim to know the Indigenous experience. Because of this, I want to share a quote, and it's kind of long, but I ask for your open ears and minds. It's from God is Red, which is a book written by Native Vine Deloria Jr., and it explores the contrasting relationship between Christianity and Native spirituality, and thus the colonizer versus Native relationship with the land. Yet there is a profound difference between American Indians and all of these other groups. The Indian is indigenous and therefore does not have the psychological burden of establishing his or her right to the land in the deep emotional sense of knowing that he or she belongs there. Nearly half a century ago, Chief Luther Standing Bear of the Sioux tribe commented on the strange feeling of alienation which the intruder experiences and applied his analysis to the American white as follows. The white man does not understand America. He is too far removed from its formative processes. The roots of the tree of his life have not yet grasped the rock and soil. The white man is still troubled by primitive fears. He still has in his consciousness the perils of this frontier continent, some of its fastness not yet having yielded to his questioning footsteps and inquiring eyes. He shudders still with the memory of the loss of his forefathers upon its scorching deserts and forbidding mountain tops. The man from Europe is still a foreigner and an alien, and he still hates the man who questioned his oath across the continent. It is important for external groups to stop romanticizing indigeneity or deeming every Native individual an environmentalist, because they're not. And as Deloria expresses, most Indigenous groups have just failed to objectify the land we walk on in the way colonizers have. It's a lot easier to neglect what is outside of you than what is a part of you. I could share with you statistics and research that I've uncovered, but I think it's more important to start by digesting the concept and seeking to understand and empathize. The voices that are silenced and misrepresented in most mainstream coverage are the voices that deserve to be listened to the most. These are the voices of the Indigenous and voices of color. When Native demands, information, and knowledge are offered, we owe it to the health of the people and the planet to listen. Many Indigenous groups have more knowledge about the relationship with the environment than colonizers and settlers ever could. Thousands of years of knowledge. Why wouldn't we consult the peoples who share the oldest relationship with our earth when seeking to mend the environment? We have everything to lose if we continue to dismiss their voices, and everything to gain if we create space. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Rose.
And I'm Rihanna.
And I'm Abby.
And we're from Professor Johnson's Lang 120 class, Section 7. So throughout this semester, we've been doing a lot of work that has to do with storytelling, and that came in the form of reading the memoirs of several different authors, as well as writing our own narratives. And I was personally fascinated by this, so I decided to do my research topic on the power of storytelling. Stories are one of those things that are so central to our lives without us even realizing it. We read them in our books, we watch them on TV, and we talk about them all the time. And as well as being such an important part of our culture throughout history, everyone all over the world tells stories. And I thought that that was really interesting. So I wanted to look more into the power of storytelling. Okay. So another thing that inspired my research was The Moth. For those who do not know, The Moth is a multimedia storytelling platform where people of all different backgrounds can come together and tell their own personal stories, their narratives, and people of all different backgrounds can come and listen. It's done through podcasts, live events, books. It's really interesting, and it actually got its name because the founder had also seen that phenomenon of people being drawn to stories like a moth to a flame. Another thing that I was interested in was the psychological reason why we are attracted to storytelling the way we are. And so I did some research into the psychology of it and found that some of the main reasons are using stories as a form of communication. It's one of the most primal forms of communication, and we've actually been telling stories before we could even speak. It's also a way of building connection with our fellow human beings, which is really incredible and creates this equal ground when it comes to storytelling. It's also, stories are something that evoke emotion in people and help us build empathy and just really care for other people.
So throughout our entire class time, we all felt as if stories brought us together. We read a lot of stories together on our own and within our class, and we even did a project halfway through the semester called our Little Library Project, where small groups got together and made a digital little library. And when the semester came to a point where we needed to choose a group project, we all felt as if stories had such a prominent role in the class that a little library would be the best way to represent it. So this time we decided not to go digital and to actually build a little library and decorate it and fill it with some of our favorite stories. And so that's what we did.
So these are some of the stories that we'd ideally want to include in our little library. In our small group little library projects, we got together and we figured out stories and themes for ourselves. From these small group projects, we picked the ones that had the biggest impact on us, and those were the ones that we wanted to include. That's where a theme of coming of age came up. It's broad and all-encompassing, but that's because what coming of age is. These are all stories that either influenced us particularly when we were coming of age, or they have themes of the process of coming of age. So these are the stories that we wanted to share.
One more story that we wanted to share was our personal story. And so when decorating the little library, we wanted to put our story on there. So at the beginning of the semester, we had done a collaborative poem, and that's exactly what we did, is we wrote it all entirely on the little library.
And that poem would be Moss, Many Original Short Stories. It was our first collaborative piece as a class. The title Moss comes from an essay that we read by Robin Kimmerer, which is about language and her research on moss. From there, Moss practically became a mascot for our class, and then the acronym simply followed. Initially, we all wrote our own poems. They're poems about our background and our stories and our history. And then we each contributed a line or two to our collaborative poem. The style was inspired by two poems that we read, one by Mary Pfeiffer, I'm From, and Langston Hughes' Theme for English B. What is my truth? Can I ever know? What makes my truth true? It's not easy to know what is true for you or me at 19, from being a student athlete playing basketball at UNCA to bare feet in school buses. There's so much diversity and so many paths and stories that have been told here, but it's because we all are different. We all have our own experiences. From a family that has tried to define me, but a mind with the power to define myself, these are my truths. The poem as a whole is on the side of our little library. So please, at the intermission, feel free to read the rest of our stories yourself.
Yes, so next up is intermission, and there's a lot of cool projects outside, but ours is one of them. You guys can go and check it out and share some stories of your own. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Who is the one who put Waiting for Godot in the library?
I'm not sure.
That would be Abby.
Why?
Because I read it when I was coming of age, obviously. It had a big impact on me. Like the lessons and themes that we were learning while we were reading that in my English class my senior year of high school, those are what helped impacted me and helped develop me as a high schooler.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion for your library.
Oh, cool.
Holes.
Holes. Yeah, that's a good one. Awesome. All right, thank you.
Okay, so yes, now we have intermission, so go out and enjoy everything that's in the lobby, and we'll put this little library somewhere, so if you've got books to donate, feel free to drop those by as you're packing up your dorm rooms. Yeah, 10 minutes for intermission or so, okay? And then we're back here for the second half of our program.
All right. I am not the one who made this. I'm Nathan Harland. I'll be presenting for Micah Hayes tonight since he is currently unable to. So I will be using note cards as I don't really know the research too well myself. He asked to pass out these handouts. Would anyone like them? So his research was on the school to prison pipeline program, but more importantly, how the role school resource officers play in the program. In this presentation on the slideshow, you'll see SRO. That just stands for Student Resource Officer. So is the presence of school resources officers in school simply to protect students and help youth with disciplinary issues, or do student resource officers exacerbate the pipeline program? Before we answer that question, let's address a few different questions. What is the school to prison pipeline program? I did not know what this was. So it's the practice of excluding children from schools, funneling them into the juvenile justice system for small infractions. And when we mean small infractions, we mean harmless class disruptions, childlike behavior, and this leads to suspension, expulsion, and arrests sometimes. Another term we'll be using in this presentation is exclusionary discipline. Consequences in school which lead to systematic exclusion, notably with minorities and disabled children, or with children with disabilities. What role do SROs play in school discipline? Student resource officers are supposed to play the role of safety, but also mentors, role models, and teachers for the students. What are zero tolerance policies? Those are harsh disciplinary procedures that enforce ridiculous punishments or arrests for what in the past schools would take care of by themselves. And he made a comparison where zero tolerance to the prison pipeline is like the war on drugs to mass incarceration. And this leads us to the question, should police be present in schools? So why is this a problem? And let's try and understand how this came into existence. In the 1990s, youth violence increased, and it peaked up in 1994. So it peaked up in 1994, and in response, the US created the Safe Schools Act of 1994, which was designed, and this added in the zero tolerance policy and the student resource officers. As well as this, many schools started employing metal detectors, surveillance cameras, drug dogs, that kind of stuff. And one common myth is the use of police in schools is due to an increase in violence. Violence in America has been on a steady decline since the mid-90s, only the fear of mass shooting has encouraged people to want to keep student resource officers. In many cases, the presence of police in schools has not de-escalated the violence, but instead increased violence with the use of force against students. Unfortunately, exclusionary discipline enforced by student resource officers has since been on the rise, and arrests on school grounds have increased rapidly, fueling the pipeline program. So here's a simple formula he devised that I believe many scholars and academics would agree with, where minor misbehaviors by students plus school resource officers and zero tolerance policies equals the school to prison pipeline. To show this formula in action, in 2010 to 2011, over 16,000 students were referred to the juvenile justice system in Florida alone. From 2004 to 2009, the LAPD got over 83,000 referrals for student resource officers. And nationwide in 2015-2016, 82,800 students with mental disabilities were arrested. I want to emphasize again that disciplinary tactics used to fuel the pipeline are seriously discriminatory against minorities, particularly in low-income areas, and with students with disabilities. A 13-year-old was handcuffed for writing on a desk. A 5-year-old was arrested for throwing a temper tantrum. I think there's more. Items such as aspirin have been considered drugs, and paper clips can be considered weapons in some schools. Elementary students expelled or arrested for pointing their fingers at someone in the shape of a gun, farting in class, and bringing a cake knife to school for their birthday. Even wearing the wrong colored shoes sometimes. This is completely unacceptable to treat kids like this. So how can we disrupt the school to prison pipeline? We believe that in the meantime, while other measures to reduce the pipeline are created, student resource officers should be involved in extensive specialized training, such as learning to understand youth through empathetic listening, proficiency in de-escalation measures, advanced public relations classes, continued sensitivity training about minorities, impoverished children, students with disabilities, etc. Because if they're going to be on a campus, a teacher has to go through classes on how to be trained properly with kids, so why shouldn't they? I believe that is the end. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for having me. The first poem is called The Smoky Mountain Psalm, and this is by me. I wouldn't trade these mountains, these smoky mountains, for all the king's gold in the world. Nayeth would I trade their gentle people, be my word against the sword. I've grown to love these beautiful mountain peaks, and the poetry the people speak, and the homage so many seek in these beautiful mountains, oh, across the foggy fields, oh. Greatness, may it come and go, wealth and power as can show, but ne'er they be as beautiful and whole as the glory in those purple mountains capped with snow. I couldn't find more in jewels and silver than what I've seen there in these rivers, from what her sacred womb Mother Earth delivered, all those fish and tadpole, deer and beaver. When it's quietly and softly night, how you know a spring's a-comin', when all the forest critters coo lullabies, chirpin' and a-hummin', till the morn the skies are born, far distant drum beats thrumming, and yonder emerald hills burst lively daffodils, among two lovers tossling, and all around the bird songs sound about the budding blossoms. Yes, silently live forever, legends held deep within their talking stones, inscribed within these living blue pyramids, holding high heaven's mystifying dome. Who we are is oh so very small, for from the great mystery life's given of loving hands. But surely to see all this majesty heralds each tender soul, strong and grand, before our precious bodies fold into the earthen tomb of this ancient, sacred land. Thank you. This is a poem titled Libertas, which is the Latin word for liberty. I hear a bells a-ringing out from a foggy forest cave. I hear a child singing, her voice wild with righteous rage. Lady Liberty, ye giant, striding round your world, we look up to your silver sword and silence as you slice our hateful words. Lady Liberty, mi diosa, freedom's at last her dawn. The Nubian doulas blessed your birth with their sacred freedom songs. We open our eyes to see no currency can contain you, no man bind you to a bed, No doctrine can tame you, for from your blood sacraments ye led selfish fear beyond its self-inflicted darkness and despair, beyond and to the bright, luscious land of courage Almighty God prepared for all his people who dare the pursuit of life itself. So sing ye, Lady Liberty, above cement and razor wire, and that iron bell's brazen yells will ring through hell's hungry fire. Oh, that music sounds so sweet to all the souls awakening, to all the souls who fought in bondage and left our earth aspiring for flight on high eagle's wings above man's crumbling empires. Thank you.
Hello there, I'm Michael Portini. In my Lang 120 class, we did a genre analysis project where we were tasked to analyze a type of writing within a topic of our interest. And I chose the research article within psychology. Your next question might be, why do I care about the research article within psychology? What a great question, everybody. There's a lot of reasons. Maybe if you're a student, your brain learns for you, and the results of studies examining that topic might be of interest to you. The DSM lists over 150 mental illnesses that, if they don't affect you, affect someone that you might care about. And that's another great reason to care. And also talking to people, social connections. I do that sometimes. That's another great thing that you should care about in terms that psychology studies. And that brings me to my main point, that psychologists are only as good as the medium that their work persists in. And the reason why I chose the research article is because they give you the most accurate and the most recent findings possible. So enough of that, let's talk about my specific project. And I used two main articles to build the foundation of my thinking. And that's the Standards for the Preparation and Writing of Psychology Review articles by Fernandez-Rios and Buela Casal, and Teaching the Conventions of Academic Discourse by Teresa Tani, who is an author that we studied a lot in my Lang class. And I used those to build these three main points that psychology research articles might want to include. That would be clearness in terms of prose, as many references, and to have a consistent structure. In addition to that, I also had the chance to sit down with a neuroscience professor on campus, Dr. Fu, and he helped me get a greater understanding of what good psychology research articles have. Those points being, they should strive to plan to stick around for a really long time, hopefully be referenced hundreds of years in the future, to be as credible as possible. And my favorite, most important point is that they lead to something important, that they lead to discovery. And my project exists in bridging these ideas. So let's start with references. Psychology has a notoriously brutal peer review process, and you're basically never going to get your foot even through the door if you don't have as many references as possible. And obviously that includes people who agree with your argument, even the people who disagree with your argument, as it gives you a chance to rebut them and build your ideas further. I also saw a lot of referencing your own experiments that you've done. One of the articles that I looked at was a social neuroscience perspective on adolescent risk-taking, which included about 6 pages of references, which for me is a lot. And so the main point here is to heavily source. And that brings us to the idea of credibility. There's a little picture of the sources. So the next point is clearness. I saw what was iterated a lot in my research was that you might want to have clutter-free prose when creating your research articles. As said by Nora Bacon, who's another author we studied, clarity and conciseness is desirable. Thawne's fifth move in the teaching conventions was use academic and discipline-specific vocabulary. And the Fernandez, Rios, and Buela Casal, they recommended avoiding emotive language and to center on empirically relevant knowledge. And that brings us to the idea of longevity, because when you increase the understandability of what you write, that sets you up to have your articles stick around for a really long time. And that means a lot. I mean, you're giving yourself the best chance to make something. Obviously, if your ideas are good, then you're setting yourself up to make something really special with your article. And the final point is consistent structure. There were a lot of similar points that I saw between these two main articles. I wish I could go into all of them right now. I'm sure you're all super interested. Here are the connections if you want a visual. But what all of this boils down to really is this one main point, that having a consistent structure between all academic research articles is that it makes your writing easier to read. And that connects back to the other 2 points, that it makes you more likely to be published because your peers can get to the root of your ideas and understand you better. And then, on top of that, it's more easily understood by anyone. Like a Lang 120 student like me, hopefully even Lang 120 students hundreds of years into the future. So then that brings you to the biggest part, that the consistent structure leads to discovery, leads to everyone having something as a part of their knowledge base. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
So, as you can see, the topic that I'm going to be covering is about domestic violence and sexual assault on college campuses. The video that I will be presenting later on in the presentation does contain a lot of sensitive material and graphic descriptions of certain cases involving sexual assault and domestic violence. If you are not comfortable with that, if that is something that is really sensitive to you, you are more than welcome to step out of the room and then come back as soon as the video is over. This is a safe space, there's no judgment here, so we'll start with that. But before we get the video started, there are a couple of points that I wanted to bring up regarding sexual assault and domestic violence on college campuses. We are currently in a day and age of some of the highest numbers regarding college admissions in the United States. This includes minorities, and this especially includes women that are now getting admitted to these higher education institutions. And while we see an increase of these admissions, we also see an increase in domestic violence and sexual assault cases on college campuses. I'm sure you all are, I'm sure you guys are all aware of these occurrences, as we recently had the Occupy the Quad demonstration about a couple weeks ago. And it's just something that really needs to be brought attention to, and more so than I'm not going to really be talking about as much as what college campuses need to do, but I'm talking about us as a student body. Because federally speaking, like according to the law, there's really only so much that a college campus can do. But before I can talk about what needs to be done about sexual assault and domestic violence, is that first I need to talk about what that is. So according to the Center for Relationship Abuse Awareness, domestic violence, dating violence, abuse is considered patterns of abusive and coercive behaviors that are used to maintain power and control over a former or current partner. Domestic violence and sexual assault is about power. Any sort of sexual gratification comes second. It's a power dynamic, and it's a fight for control. And that is what makes it so debilitating. Stalking, psychological trauma, physical trauma, threats, isolation, intimidation, all of these are forms of violence and a part of rape culture. Women, especially women in marginalized groups between the ages of 18 and 24, are at the highest risk of being victims of sexual assault or dating violence. Out of every 1,000 university students, 6 of those will experience violence, whether it be sexual or physical, in an intimate relationship.
as more of these cases and assaults are performed by friends or partners or family members of the victim. As of 2016, 22% of women reported experiencing sexual or dating violence upon coming to college, not prior, but upon coming to college. Those statistics range from about 22% to about 40%, and the reason being that the gap is so wide is that there are, as we know, many stigmas about reporting sexual assault, as there are lots of social risks and most people don't feel safe. Title IX can only do so much. Under federal law, Title IX only implements that there has to be an investigation of the reported case. It is not legally required to go to court. College campuses cannot legally administer restraining orders, nor can they legally administer jail time to those who have been accused of a assault. So it really does limit what a college campus can do. But as far as going to the student body, as of 2017, 52% of students said that if they saw or heard of a friend or a classmate or somebody on campus who was a victim of, like actively being a victim of sexual assault or domestic violence, that they would not get involved. That really does need to change. And the video that I'm about to show you is as to why. We hear a lot of survivor stories, but what I'm going to be showing you is those who did not. The making of the video was a little bit of a process. I did write and record the music that's playing in the background. The songwriting process took about 24 hours. The recording process took about 4 or 5. And then putting the video together was about 5 or 6 hours. So a lot of time up on this screen right here. But like I said, you know, this is a lot of sensitive content. If you feel uncomfortable, feel free to remove yourself. It's totally understandable, safe space. And please enjoy. I mean, you know, to your fullest extent, it's heavy material, but you know what I mean. Thank you.
I see you in the road. Can you hear me calling?
Thank you. As sort of a parting word, these cases that I researched were extremely difficult to find. They were mostly found in local news. None of them really went to more popular news outlets. They were not given very much exposure, and I can guarantee you that there have been more cases like this happening. Locklear's case was probably the hardest to find, which isn't difficult to see because women, especially women in marginalized groups, tend to be the most isolated when it comes to these cases. I would have liked to have had a more diverse panel of victims, but unfortunately this is what was, this is what was given attention and little else was. As I get off this podium, I would just like, keep your eyes open, check in on your friends, even if you don't know them, this is a very nice campus full of very nice people, and even if you feel like you don't know them that well, it's probably just better to speak up, just to say that you did something rather than to feel like you didn't do anything at all. So we're a family here. Just watch out for each other, take care of each other, and I'll take any questions or comments if you have any. All right, have a safe day, you guys.
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren Dunn, and I'm representing Professor Johnson's 11 a.m. Lang 120 class. So this semester, our class decided to create a collaborative video on all the research we've done, specifically focusing on the different conversations that we have entered into with our research. So without further ado, this is Lang, Laugh, Love, Sharing Perspectives and Embracing the Process.
This year, I've worked on many projects, including a narrative essay in which I discussed the many ways my grandmother has influenced who I am, and now I'm working on a video essay discussing the ways that MTV changed the music industry and pop culture.
Early on, I decided that I wanted to delve deeper into my StoryCorps research, which was on babies born with withdrawal symptoms, known as neonatal abstinence syndrome. I created a presentation and focused my attention primarily on how the perceptions and language of the opioid crisis in America today ultimately affected and influenced this disease and opioid usage.
A little library for the rural town of Swannanoa. We hope that our little library sparks conversations about the struggles of growing up, especially since our target audience may not have the privilege of the internet where teens do much of their learning and exploring. We want these books to help the audience feel less alone, awkward, and ostracized. We also hope that our little library provides insight into other parts of society, inspiring empathy for different cultures and those who we do not connect with on a surface level. The world can seem so small if you are not actively searching to learn more about it.
There is something fundamentally flawed about the language we use to talk about climate change. In other words, something in the way we explain climate change needs to change because people are still unable to accept it as a reality. For example, when we talk about climate change as a battle between two opposing sides, such as left versus right, it discourages people on the right from getting involved in climate mitigation efforts. We can instead say things like, there's a hole in the boat. Not only do we need to patch up the hole, but we also have to start dumping water overboard in order to stay afloat. Using a peaceful analogy like this, instead of explaining climate change in terms of human wrongdoing or as a fight, helps people who disagree with climate change to understand it.
I have been researching how VR can help individuals with PTSD overcome the images, sounds, and other things that may trigger their PTSD episodes. This is a form of exposure therapy and is safer when traditional methods just aren't good enough. From the study conducted by Georgia Tech in 1997 to sessions today, it seems to help military veterans overcome their triggers. Scientists are also noticing that repeated VR exposure therapy sessions tend to lower biological indicators of panic.
My work for this class began when I wrote a narrative about growing up and how my active imagination and attention to detail brought me closer to the natural world and closer to science. The endless hours I spent in the backyard with my sister explain why I'm an environmental studies major and why I care so much about environmental issues. For my last project,
I researched the topic of climate change and wrote an op-ed explaining why action against climate change is necessary.
I began my research project through the lens of investigative journalism and investigative podcasts. My final project, though, in addition to a short podcast, was in the form of a graphic novel in the neo-noir style. I wanted to synthesize the two genres, specifically the aspect of the inclusion of the process of investigative journalism and the dark aspect of neo-noir graphic novels in the final product.
Around the middle of semester, I created an infographic on musicals about social issues and decided to use that as my topic of research. The final product of my research is a how-to guide on musicals about social issues for high school drama teachers. Each post on the website is about a different musical, the social issue or issues it depicts, and how it can be used to teach students about hard subjects.
Gaining different perspectives from people of all different races, cultures, and beliefs is valuable because having a greater understanding of how people around the world live is so important in allowing you to gain empathy and more accurate perceptions. Through my research, I have found that there have actually been studies on this where a person's capacity to empathize has been increased simply by reading. It is interesting to me how much more accepting and empathetic the whole world could be if more people took the time to read and learn about each other.
This class was challenging and useful. Recently, I learned how to do thorough research by finding solid and reputable sources. I believe it also helped me develop my writing skills. I'm not one for explaining, but if I had to sum up my experience, I'd say it was overall beneficial.
In my research, I explored the works of Hunter S. Thompson and the impact he has made on journalism today. From Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72 to Hell's Angels, a strange and terrible saga, his influence in giving birth to the Gonzo journalism movement has sent waves through journalism that we still feel today. I believe his style and work should be used as a blueprint to expose the United States' current administration.
I began researching the different views on how the electric car impacts the environment. I'm looking at the scientist view versus an economist view on whether or not the electric car is actually beneficial to the environment. I intend to create a website that will break down all the information for people to see. I want this website to be a teaching tool so people can be informed instead of just jumping to conclusions.
I've spent my time researching podcasts and why they've gotten so big all of a sudden. The question is actually a lot more complex than one would think. There are multiple reasons why podcasts are blowing up, but the main reason is the evolution of technology, making them easier to make and listen to. Not to mention the many personalities that form a connection with their audience, leading to an easy profit.
We all know someone who has gotten pregnant at our age, and we have all judged her. This is a result of centuries-old sexism rooted in society's obsession and regulation of female sexuality. The discourse on teenage pregnancy is damaging, unnecessary, and needs to change, as every teen girl's self-image is at stake.
I researched the 7 unique steps of the engineering process, and then I researched the International Space Station, which I used as a case study for that process. From my research, I pulled examples about the ISS project to represent each of the 7 steps and created a how-to engineering guide for high schoolers.
On the left is a poem I wrote for one of my first assignments in class. Poetry was a constant theme in my work throughout the semester. The 2 emphasized quotes connect back to one of our earlier discussions about intersubjectivity and the truth of shared perspectives. For our latest assignment, I chose to research erotic poetry specifically written by women. I learned a lot about new and shared perspectives in my research.
Writing as well as listening to music is key to my work. I get so much inspiration from listening to music on SoundCloud. That is why I chose to do my research on the creative process and platform of SoundCloud. The song playing right now is Hit Me Up by Space Jesus. I chose to play this song because I believe it is an example of a song that my research would point to. It is dynamic with multi-genres and sounds. You can tell there's an underground EDM influence as well as a reggae tone. It just sounds good in your ears. I believe that listening as well as writing can change the world of music.
Cool.
Cool. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Luke Japaritse. I'm a mechatronics major here at UNC Asheville, and my research project was about general education requirements. And part of that project was me going to interview some of my fellow peers and see what they thought about it. So here's a short video put together. Hope you enjoy.
My name is Luke Japaritse, and today I'm going to be interviewing people about general education requirements. Let's go check that out. What's up, man? Do you mind if I ask you some questions? Sure. All right, cool. So, what's your name?
Bobby.
Bobby. And what year are you?
I'm a junior.
Junior, awesome. And what are you majoring in?
I was a bio major, but now I'm going to health and wellness.
Okay. And approximately what portion of your credit hours this year went towards general education requirements?
None.
None?
None.
Well, how about in the past? Like,
Dude,
all of your education?
Oh, probably 12 hours right now.
12 hours, okay. What else? Do you think general education requirements are helpful or harmful to students?
I mean, I don't think they're helpful, but I don't think they're harmful either.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Would you say you're getting your money's worth out of a general education?
No, because that makes me have to take more credit hours than what I have to get my major.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I think they're just making us go to more college, honestly, and pay more money.
So leading into that, do you think your education is preparing you adequately for your future?
I mean, and overall, yeah. But with general education, no. I don't think that's helping anything for what I want to do.
All right, that's all I need. Thanks, man.
Yep.
All right, so I'm here with, what's your name, man?
Evan.
Evan. All right, and what year are you?
Sophomore.
Sophomore? Awesome. What's your major?
Math.
Math major, awesome. So approximately what portion of your credit hours in your total education went towards general education requirements?
I entered with 19 credit hours from high school, so that was a bunch. But like, I haven't done shit. I haven't done the humanities or like foreign language or anything like that, so small.
Right, yeah. Awesome. So do you think general education requirements are helpful or harmful to the average student?
Harmful.
Harmful?
I mean, like, it makes it feel like high school, like you're going here to like learn about a thing, and then like they say the humanities represent all fucking branches looking at one thing together. It's like the whole point of the liberal arts, but they don't include like any STEM. So I just don't think that it's executed too well. It's good in concept, but I don't think it works.
Yeah, I totally agree. So a few more questions here. So do you think you're getting your money's worth out of your education?
No.
No?
God, no.
All right. And last question. Do you think your education is preparing you adequately for the future?
I don't know, because I don't know what it's going to be like to be out of college.
Right.
So
yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, appreciate it, man.
No
Thanks.
problem.
All right.
No.
So I'm here with, what's your name, man?
Luke.
Oh, me too, man.
Oh, hey.
Okay. So, what year are you?
I am a freshman.
Freshman. Okay. And what's your major?
Mechatronics.
Mechatronics. Very nice. Me too.
Yeah.
So approximately, what portion of your credit hours thus far have went towards general education?
Every single one of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, do you think general education requirements are helpful or harmful to students?
Harmful.
Why?
I don't fucking know.
Okay. Okay.
I don't like them.
We can cut that out. Okay. Do you think you're getting your money's worth out of a liberal arts education?
No.
No. Okay. Do you want to elaborate or?
I'm dropping out.
Dropping out, actually. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think having to take general education requirements maybe led you towards that?
Yes.
Okay. Good to know. So do you think your education is preparing you adequately for the future?
No.
No.
I mean, not right now. I'm just not motivated right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, appreciate it, man. Thanks. So I'm here with, what's your name?
Sophie Snapper.
Nice to meet you.
TJ.
TJ. All right, I'm Luke. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Emma.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So what year are you?
I'm a freshman.
Freshman.
Sophomore.
And what's your major?
I am undecided right now. I'm hoping to pursue something
Right now, computer science, but I'm switching.
health and wellness.
Okay. And so approximately what portion of your credit hours this year went towards general education requirements?
I would say, I don't know if I can remember. I would say majority of them.
Half of my credits this semester. About half, roughly half. Yeah. All right.
I don't know the exact number of hours, but I would say every semester it's about half general requirements for the liberal arts and then half requirements for the major program.
You think general education requirements are helpful or harmful to students?
I believe that they are helpful. I believe that most of them are important, although I do think that sometimes students tend to not try as hard in those classes because maybe they don't want to win them.
Definitely, yeah.
I think helpful, but kind of irritating because you've got to get them done to graduate, and it's just kind of another barrier you have to step over on top of passing your major classes, and it's not helpful.
Yeah, definitely not.
I think general education requirements are helpful depending on the class, and I think it's important that the professors understand that it is a general education class and not part of your major, so the workload should kind of be catered to that because you're getting a lot of different levels of faculties.
Thank you for being here. There's still stuff you can look at and listen to out in the lobby. There might even be a couple of slices of pizza. So good luck with all your exams, and we'll see you next semester.